Okay, bore da, good morning. Croeso Canes Iawn, a very warm welcome to this morning's Cabinet meeting. Apologies for the slight delay, which is not unusually is due to some slight technical difficulties, which I'm pleased to say have now been ironed out. And we can make a start. We've got a fairly full agenda today and some important items on it. An important meeting, and we'll start with apologies, please.
Chair, apologies from Councillor Sean Cox.
Duly noted, thank you very much. And then we can move to the minutes of the meeting held on the 18th of February and then reconvened again on the 21st of February. And I'm at this point must offer my thanks to Deputy Leader of the Council, Councillor Matthew Dorrance, for chairing those meetings as I was absent on other council business. So they are on pages 3 to 8, and I will need a proposer and a seconder for those, please. Proposed by Councillor Matthew Dorrance, seconded by Councillor Pete Roberts. Would all those in favour please show? Thank you very much. That's carried.
Sorry, Leader. Could I
hand from Aled Davies.
Sorry, Leader. Could I question the accuracy of the when the meeting was resumed on the Friday? The final paragraph that starts, Councillor Bryn Davies spoke. Can I just be quite clear that Councillor Bryn Davies is not the local member for Ysgol Llanrhaeadr? That is me. That sort of indicates that Bryn's speaking on behalf of Llanrhaeadr. He was not. And then when my comments about retaining the Welsh language education, I was talking about retaining access to the Welsh education system rather than specifically the Welsh language education, but that, you know, both are tied together, obviously. And the head of transformation in education said that Llanfachlin did not respond, but the minutes don't make clear that Llanfachlin School was not contacted by the transformation team. Thank you, Leader.
Okay, at this point, I wasn't there, so I'm not really in a position to comment on this. And if I could invite Councillor Matthew Dorrance, could I ask you as the chair of the meeting?
Thank you, Leader. The minutes of the reconvened meeting state that Councillor Bryn Davies spoke as a member in a neighbouring ward. They don't suggest he was speaking as the ward member, so I believe the minutes to be correct, which is why I moved them. In relation to Councillor Davies's second point, Councillor Davies suggested in the meeting that the school would be prepared to do some work. We had not received notification about that, so I couldn't take that as evidence or fact in that meeting and proceeded without it.
Okay, I mean,
Chair, officers have confirmed to me that Llanfachlin School was contacted and there is an email chain to show that they did. So I would strongly dispute the suggestion put forward by the local member.
Not contacted about the alternative model? They were not. Thank you.
Oh, look, I don't think we can have a debate about this now. I mean, all we're dealing with here is the minutes and whether they're accurate. And my indication to me has been given to me that they are accurate. The members have actually voted. So I think we'll just have to leave it at that. Aled, if you'd like to sort of come back to me about this outside the meeting, you're more than welcome to. But I think we have to take that item as having them dealt with. So thanks very much anyway, and we move on. So we move on to item 3 on the agenda, which is, excuse me, for some reason lost my 9 minutes. Sorry, declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest that members need to make? No, I see none. Good, let's move on to item 4, the Welsh Language 5-year promotion strategy 2025 to 2030. And this is in the name of Sir Sandra Davies. Councillor Sandra, welcome.
Diolch yn fawr, Cadeirydd. Bore da pawb. Just before I proceed to introduce the report, I want to pay tribute and express my appreciation to the Welsh Language Governance Panel, who provide scrutiny on matters relating to the Welsh language in the Council's internal and external work. The panel, chaired by Councillor Elwyn Vaughan, meets quarterly and consists of elected members from all political parties in the Council. This includes myself having responsibility for the Welsh language. Draft versions of the strategy were presented to the panel in March, September and December 2024. We are grateful for their challenges and constructive comments, which we incorporated into the final draft. This has strengthened the strategy, which now provides greater opportunities to promote the use of Welsh throughout Powys. Diolch yn fawr. The purpose of this report is to seek approval for the draft Welsh Language Promotion Strategy 2025, the strategy. The strategy aims to promote the use of Welsh language in Powys and make it easier for residents to use the language. The vision is to support more people in speaking Welsh confidently and using it in their communities. The vision is to in the communities. The section 2 of the report outlines the background relating to the Welsh language standards being introduced as part of the Welsh Language Wales Measure 2011. The standards place a duty on all councils in Wales to provide services in Welsh, consider the impact of their policies on the Welsh language, and promote the use of Welsh within the county. The standards state we must produce a 5-year strategy setting out how we propose to promote the Welsh language in Powys and what must be included in the strategy. There are 3 objectives, all of which are supported by action plans and accompanying measures to monitor and track progress. The action plans also set out who is responsible and what needs to happen. The objectives are: 1. Increase the number of children and young people in Powys who speak Welsh confidently. Focus on, this will be done by focusing on and increasing the percentage of nursery and the reception class children receiving Welsh medium education and the percentage of pupils studying GCSE Welsh language. 2. Increase the use of Welsh in internal work, and that will be achieved by developing an ethos that encourages staff and elected members to use Welsh regularly in their daily work and develop their Welsh language skills. And the 3rd objective being to encourage businesses, the voluntary sector and community organisations to use Welsh. And this will be done by promoting the benefits of offering services in Welsh to businesses and community organisations. The strategy supports Powys County Council's Welsh in Education Strategic Plan, the WESP, 2022 and 2032, but it does not duplicate the actions. Welsh Government's aim is to create 1 million Welsh speakers by 2050, and they state the most effective way of developing new speakers in Welsh through Welsh medium education. We will evaluate the effectiveness of the strategy quarterly, and this will be the responsibility of the Welsh Language Governance Panel. Diolch yn fawr. Thank you, Chair.
Diolch yn fawr chi. Thank you very much to you. Now open it up to Cabinet members who would wish to speak. Does any member of Cabinet wish to speak at this stage? No, I see no hands. Did you wish to speak? In that case, I'll bring in Councillor Elwyn Vaughan, please. Councillor Elwyn Vaughan, thank you.
Diolch Arweinydd. Jyst i ddweud cwpl o eiriau. Fel mae'n digwydd, 2 flynedd yn union yn ôl yn y siambr yma, mi nes I gyflwyno araith yn sôn am y Gymraeg ym Mhywys, a dyma'r rhan fech ohono. Pan aeth Siôn I weld I daid yn y cartre henoed, clywodd ef yn siarad efo'r hen wr yn y sedd nesaf yn Gymraeg. Dywedodd yn taid, "What were you saying, Taid? I wish I could understand you." Esboniodd ei daid fel roedd pawb yn yr ardal yn arfer siarad Cymraeg, yn ei pob dim yn naturiol trwy Gymraeg, ond efo amser, diffyg swyddi, diffyg addysg Gymraeg a diffyg statws, ac adeiladu stadau tai diangen gan newid y boblogaeth, a'r neges parhaol mae Saesneg oedd iaith swyddogol I pob dim, tanseiliodd hynny hyder llawer. Gwelwyd methu trosglwyddiad o genedlaeth I genedlaeth. Fel dwylo yn estyn allan rhwng y cenedlaethau, ond methu cyffwrdd I gilydd. Felly, ymgais ydy'r cynllun hyrwyddo yma heddiw I gywiro methiannau y ganrif ddiwetha. Fel bod Siôn y dyfodol yn medru siarad a'i daid, ac bod ei daid yn medru rhannu gyfoeth o wybodaeth, hanes a thraddodiadau. Yn amlwg, gyfeillion, megis gosod y seiliau fydd y cynllun yma ger eich bron, ond o leia mae'n gosod cyfeiriad cywir ac mae'n bleser ei gyflwyno i chi heddiw. Diolch yn fawr.
Diolch yn fawr. Many thanks, Councillor Owen Vaughan. I now have Councillor Pete Roberts who'd like to come in, please, the portfolio holder.
Thank you, Leader. I would just like to endorse the education aspects of this paper. This is a result of a significant amount of work from the Welsh language team within the education department, small though it is, and sets out some clear ways that we will be able to promote and support particularly English-speaking families that are considering a Welsh medium education for their children. I think this is a positive step forward in respect to the West, but later today we'll hear from scrutiny about how Trochi can be improved within the area, something I'll welcome again there. But for now, this one shows a clear vision, clear ambition, and a timely and smart set of objectives that we can monitor and improve on. So I too, from an education perspective, commend this paper to Cabinet.
Thank you very much, Pete. Councillor Richard Church, please.
Thank you, Leader. Yeah, I would too like to endorse the paper and fully support it. It is incredibly frustrating how long it takes to turn around the tanker, as it were, in reversing the decline of the Welsh language. Councillor Elwyn is quite right to point out the past mistakes that have happened throughout Wales, which have undermined the language and led to its diminished use in the past. But I believe that the tanker is now turning around. And I think some of the figures, the statistics in this paper demonstrate that, in that although the total number of Welsh speakers fell slightly in the last census, there is a pickup in the number of young people in our schools speaking Welsh, and that's to be welcomed. And I know of cases which are sort of the reverse of the story that Elwyn just told about the boy who couldn't understand his grandfather, in that I know of grandchildren whose grandparents have lost the language but are now being educated in Welsh medium schools in Powys, and the language has returned. It's missed out a generation or two, but now it's coming back, and I think that's to be welcomed. But it will take time before that is reflected in the figures that that we see, in the statistics that we see. But I believe it will happen, and I believe that this council is now on the right track to expanding the Welsh medium provision throughout the county, and I welcome that and welcome the paper.
Thank you very much, Councillor Richard Church. And Councillor Jake Berman, please.
Thank you very much, and I too welcome the paper and the plan, and appreciate and accept and support the duty for Powys Council to promote the use of Welsh within the county. It's a fine ambition to retain and strengthen the number of Welsh speakers, helping all those interested in the language along the language continuum. It is, however, vitally important that this is seen as being an inclusive approach and not an exclusive one. It should not be at the cost, in my view, of, as Councillor Elwyn puts, the history and traditions that we have locally in the regions throughout Powys. It should not be at the cost of the Radnorshire dialect, which is as culturally important to those born and brought up in here without locally without the Welsh language necessarily, as it is to those Welsh residents living elsewhere in the county. And criticising and correcting Radnorshire born and bred employees is not something that I would expect to see as part of a progressive, inclusive approach within the county, and it's not something I hope that is repeated. So I will be supporting this, but I think we need to just temper some of our actions occasionally to respect the cultural traditions that we have throughout Powys. Thank you.
No, thank you. A very interesting contribution, if I may say so, and glad though that you continue to support the strategy. Councillor Matthew Doran.
Thanks, Leader. I'm quite excited about this, actually. I think it's ambitious. I was really pleased to see my social media feed full yesterday of schools in Brecon belatedly celebrating St David's Day in the town square, Canu Cymraeg, singing in Welsh, and leading the community really to celebrate all that's brilliant about Welsh culture and our language. And it does belong to everybody, so it is right that this council steps up to the mark on it. I just wanted to comment really on objective 3. I think it's an important one for us within this document because it is about civic leadership. It is about the council doing more than just internal actions in relation to the Welsh language. It is about us saying very clearly that we will become a leader in encouraging businesses in the voluntary sector and others to take steps to becoming a better promoter of the Welsh language and culture. And I think that we need to be, you know, proud of that objective, but we need to challenge ourselves on it too and make sure that we deliver on it so that this becomes a living plan really for the future. But I think it is great for this council to be signing up in this way. The ambition is one to be proud of, and I hope that we can do more in all of our communities to support the Welsh language, because it does belong to all of us. The one thing I would disagree with Councillor Elwood-Bourne on is that his comment he made about unnecessary housing estates, I think he said. That's what it said in the translation in any case. All I would say is that we need homes for Welsh speakers too, and if we are to grow the next generation of Welsh speakers, we need to house them in Powys. Diolch.
Diolch yn fawr, Matthew. Yes, good point. Very good point. Right, I see nobody else indicating they wish to speak. It's an old hand of Matthew's, I think. And if that is the case, I would invite Sand, the portfolio holder, to come back in to make the recommendation. But just before she does that, make one point myself. Mention is made of the Welsh Education Strategic Plan and the importance of this strategy as a complement to that. I think that's a really, really key point, and I wish to emphasise that it is this administration's determination to implement the WESP, and we will continue on that journey with enthusiasm, and this will help a great deal. Strategy. So, Sandra.
Diolch yn fawr. Can I thank all members as well for their very positive, kind words regarding the strategy. It is a document that is collectively to be delivered, and I thank you for your support. And may I thank our staff as well. We have got a small cohort of staff who are stretched to the limits, but this is a legal requirement for all local authorities to adhere to these objectives. So, excuse me, thank you very much for your support. And I'd like to move a recommendation, which is on page 15, section 10, that the Cabinet approve the draft Welsh language promotion strategy for 2025-2030. Diolch yn fawr.
Diolch yn fawr. Could I have a seconder for that, please? Seconded by Councillor Matthew Dorrance. And would all those in favour of the recommendation please show? I think that is unanimous. In fact, I'm sure it is. Thank you very much. Right, now the next item on the agenda naturally would fall as a good follow-up to this one, but I think there is a member of council who wishes very much to speak to it, and I don't think he's yet been able to join the meeting. No.
Not yet, Leader. Perhaps we could come back to that.
Yeah, I think that's what we'll do, if that's okay. I'm sorry, because it would have followed on nicely from item 4, but we'll move instead to item 6 and come back to item 5 in due course. Hopefully with the said member with us. So item 6, retail, leisure and hospitality rates relief scheme in Wales. And this whole lies with Councillor David Thomas, please.
Thank you, Leader. So this is the retail, leisure and hospitality rates relief scheme in Wales for 25-26. The scheme for the financial year 25-26 will offer rates relief of 40% on business rates bills, with the total available relief being subject to a cap in the total amount each business can claim across Wales. of £110,000. Properties that will benefit from this relief will be occupied properties such as shops, pubs, restaurants, sports and leisure facilities, village halls, hotels, guest houses and caravan parks, registered charities, not-for-profit organisations, and community amateur sports clubs operating within the retail, leisure and hospitality sector are eligible to apply for this relief. Powys is to receive funding of up to £3.449 million. The funding will be provided by way of a Welsh Government grant, and it's estimated that 980 Powys businesses may be entitled to the 40% rates relief, estimated at a total value of £3.449 million off their business rates bills. Due to the £110,000 cap, the relief will need to be applied for via an online application form. The relief is available from the 1st of April 2025 to the 31st of March 2026. The proposals as to how the scheme is to operate is detailed between sections 3.2 and 3.16 of the report. 3.7 actually lists the retail, leisure and hospitality rates relief schemes qualifying criteria in some detail. And 3.9, there are certain types of properties that, in compliance with the Welsh Government guidance, the Council will exclude the ratepayer from retail, leisure and hospitality relief, and they are listed below 3.9. The Council will be reimbursed in full by Welsh Government for any relief that is awarded. In other words, if correctly applied, there will be no direct cost to the Council. Guidance notes regarding the scheme are shown in Appendix A of the report. And with regard to resource implications, there are no financial implications to the Council, as Welsh Government will reimburse in full for any relief that is awarded, if correctly applied, meaning there will be no direct cost to the Council. With regard to workforce implications to the Council and minimise administration work in awarding the relief upon completed application form being received. There's a comment there from Corporate Communications, because this is a very important scheme. So this relief is of significant public interest to Powys businesses within these sectors, and will be promoted widely through all available channels, including press release and social media. And that concludes my report, leader. I think Andrew Griffiths, from a senior officer with a manager with Income and Awards, is with us, I believe. If there are any queries, I'm sure Andrew would be more than happy to address them. But I don't know, leader, if Andrew would like to add anything to what I've said at this stage.
No, many thanks, David. Andrew, do you wish to add to anything?
Nothing to add, leader.
Good. Okay, thank you. Let's move to questions or comments. Councillor Pete Roberts, please.
Thank you, leader, and thank you, David, for that presentation. It's going to be absolutely vital that we get as many of our small businesses applying for this relief as possible. We've heard from Corporate Communications that there will be press and social media, but we must already know who applied for the relief this year. So I'd like some assurance that we will be contacting those businesses and others that we're aware of proactively to encourage them to apply as soon as possible on this, and perhaps have some explanation as to what other direct promotional work we're doing that's not reliant on businesses reading the papers or having time to do social media. Yeah,
that's a really good point. Would somebody like to answer?
Yeah, yes, thank you, Councillor Pete. We do send reminders out to businesses that are known to us, but and the actual rate of compliance with the scheme and the applications is fairly high at the moment. I'm sure Andrew could give us some more detail on this, leader, if required.
Andrew?
Yeah, okay. Thank you, leader. Just to add that we do regular mail shots to those that we believe meet the qualifying criteria. Up to 6 mail shots this year for this year's scheme, so we'll be repeating that next year. We do social media, regular alerts, press releases, and for those that we believe meet the criteria but haven't applied, we're now doing targeted contact, so telephone, email, and even visiting the premises just to promote the application, because you know, the deadline is the deadline, and we can't accept late application. So it'll be a robust promotion scheme that operates in 25-26.
Thank you for that reassurance. Now, I hope that will extend to officers that are visiting the site for other means, that they also check that they're applied, so that we join up this as closely as possible with other business.
Good point. Thank you very much for raising it. Pete, are there any other comments or questions? No, doesn't look like there are. So David, you'd like to make the recommendation? We'll move on.
Thank you, Leader. That a business rates, retail, leisure and hospitality rates relief scheme 25-26 be established in accordance with section 3 of this report. Applications for business rates, retail, leisure and hospitality rates relief 2025-26 under the scheme referred to above shall be delegated to and determined by the portfolio holder for finance in consultation with the head of finance. And those are the recommendations.
Thank you. And do I have a seconder? Councillor Pete Roberts is seconded. Thank you. All those please in favour of the recommendation, please show. Good. I think again that's unanimous. So that's grand. That's taken as decided. So we move on. Do we know yet whether Councillor Green? No, not yet with us yet. Right. We forge on then to item 7, which is the financial forecast for the year ended 31st March 2025 as at the 31st December 2024, again in the name of Councillor David Thomas. Thank you, David.
Thank you, Leader. So this is the financial forecast for the year ending the 31st of March 2025 as at the 31st of December 2024. Just some background. Throughout the year, the expected outturn position at the 31st of March 2025 is projected based on expenditure and income received to date, adjusted for any known commitments and any spend or income anticipated at the end of the financial year. This is the third reported forecast outturn for 24-25 financial year, based on the financial position at the end of quarter 3 at the 31st of December 2024. Table 1 of the report summarises the projected full year outturn position across the council services, including the HRA and the school's delegated budget, and reports an underspend of £0.9 million against the budget. This is an improvement of £3.8 million from quarter 2 due to the actions taken in response to the forecast at quarter 2. The changes in the forecast position is due to a number of factors, including additional funding from Welsh Government, the transfers from specific reserves to manage the adult social care overspend position, and other changes made within social care to stabilise their budget position in 24-25. These changes are set out in Table 2. And if you look at 2.4, following on from the summary, that actually lists the social care improvements that were made. Appendix A provides the forecast financial position for each service, including the cost reductions not yet delivered but assured, any planned movements to or from reserves, and the use of the risk budget agreed to date. Further detail for each service is provided in Appendix B, where heads of service set out their individual narrative, including activities being undertaken to deliver the agreed cost reductions, the pressures facing the service, and what they're doing to manage their budget and to mitigate any shortfalls. Section 3 looks at the agreed cost reductions. Net cost reductions of £10.7 million were approved as part of the council's budget for 24-25. In addition, there were cost reductions also including the mothballing of Children's Services in-house residential scheme of £0.5 million, plus undelivered savings from previous years totalling £1.7 million, which have been rolled forward, making a total of £12.9 million of cost reductions that need to be delivered in 24-25 in order to achieve the balanced budget position. The summary in Table 3 shows that 52%, that's £6.7 million of the agreed cost reductions have been delivered by the end of the third quarter. A further 24.9%, or £3.2 million, is assured of delivery by services within the 24-25 financial year. 23.1% are described as unachieved and are at risk of delivery in this year. Services are being challenged as to the reason for the changes in positions for some savings proposals and will be required to consider mitigating action to ensure that they can deliver within the budget allocated. The latest projection reports that 76.9% of cost reductions will be delivered. This falls short of the 88% delivered by the end of Q3 last year. Those services that show unachieved cost reductions must explain why they are now not considered achievable and what remedial action they're taking to mitigate the impact on the overall performance within their service. Section 4 looks at reserves. The reserves position is set out in Table 4. At the beginning of the current financial year, £73.2 million of revenue reserves were held, with the General Fund reserve at £10 million, the equivalent of 4.1% of the net revenue budget for 24-25, excluding schools' delegated budgets under HRA. The Council's reserves policy requires the General Fund reserves to be maintained at a minimum of 4% of net revenue budget. In addition to this, there are a limited number of specific reserves and each have a clear intended purpose. And the reserves table is listed at Table 4. Schools set their budgets in May with an expected call on reserves of £3.3 million. This figure has reduced to £1.5 million as schools have provided updated forecasts and recovery plans following work with the team around the school and finance surgeries. The budgets have also received additional grant funding as set out at Appendix C, which will also have impacted on the forecast outturn position. Section 5 looks at environments and grants. With regard to grants, there have been additional grants received this quarter totaling £11.3 million, as set out in Appendix Cs. These are reported here to comply with financial regulations. Included within Appendix C are several Welsh Government grants to cover the increased costs of pay awards and pension changes. Flood and Coastal Erosion Risk Management Programme was about £50,000 to fund emergency works following Storm Bert and Storm Dara. If we look at environments for Cabinet approval, at 5.2.1, £404,120 for transport services have been awarded £1.7 million bus network grants in 24-25, and the service proposed to temporarily use £404,120 of this grant funding to support public transport costs, releasing £404,120 of base budget within public transport. It's proposed to via £392,940 of this budget to support storm flooding expenditure in highways operations and £11,180 to support storm flooding expenditure in countryside services arising from storms Bert and Dara. Total responsive costs arising from the storms are estimated at £345,000 and recovery works estimated at £1.1 million. In addition to the environment, the remaining £696,000 of expenditure will need to be managed from existing revenue budget resources held for storm works. Another environment that needs approval by Cabinet is with regard to corporate activities. A temporary environment is requested to use the one-off savings on business rates due to in-year backdated credits on council buildings to fund the unachieved savings of £350,000 on the capital borrowing budget. At 5.3, we've got environments for Cabinet to recommend to full council for approval. And there's one there, removal of the £1.4 million contribution from the housing revenue account reserve into the HRA in 24-25. This was going to be used to fund an external contractor to undertake a condition survey of the HRA. This is no longer required in 24-25. The service will now undertake the work in-house over a 4-year period. Financial risks are listed at Section 6. And they refer to the £3 million revenue risk budget, Welsh Government grants, and the improved position now been reported reduces the risk of drawing on reserves to meet an overspend this year. And again, it points out that the greatest financial risk remains in our ability to deliver a balanced budget over the medium and longer term. And at 6.5, we point out that the council has benefited from being significantly under borrowed in recent years. Last year to a level of £100 million due to the level of cash balances held. This approach has reduced the need to borrow and the resultant associated costs, such as interest. I'll leave it there, Leader. There's comments at section 7 with regard to the resource implications from the 151 officer. I don't know if the 151 officer would like to add to this report.
No, I think, David, you covered it very comprehensively, so that's fine. Anything else to add? No, that's lovely. All right, many thanks, John. And so we move to comments and questions. And we have one from Councillor Jake Berriman, please.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair, and thank you very much, David, for your report. Once again, your assurance that you're able to offer us in a very difficult set of external financial circumstances is really appreciated. The projected underspend of 0.9 million against a budget of 341 million is, as near as damn it, bringing it in absolutely online, and that is a really good turnaround from our Q2 wobble. And I know at Q2 that we had a bit of an awakening in terms of some of the issues in social care, and we're dealing with that elsewhere. But also you've highlighted in here some of the specific actions that we're taking there to get back on track with that. And of course, those features weren't unique to us. We see those right across Wales, with the Welsh Local Government Associations reporting on that as well. But I know that as we go forward in this last quarter, that I'm working extremely closely with officers within my portfolio hold responsibilities to bring the budget in online. And I just want to thank those officers for their ongoing support and creativity, as you've highlighted here, with environments, etc., adjustment in spending patterns, and not falling into the trap that I think local people might think that we do as a council, just rushing to spend every penny, leading up to March. What you're seeing here is actually a very cautious approach, moving money around, doing things differently in order to maintain prudency, David. And you really do set the tone for us in Cabinet and in the council there. And I want to just make sure that doesn't go without positive remark.
Yes, indeed, and many thanks for making them. Very welcome, Jake. Now I have the chair of the finance panel wishing to speak. So Councillor Aled Davies, please.
Thank you, Leader. Thanks for the opportunity to say a couple of things. We had a very quick meeting of the finance panel a week ago today, I think it was. And thank you to Councillor David and officers for attending that meeting. And apologies, the minutes or notes of that meeting aren't with you. I think they're still sitting with the finance team just to make sure they're completely accurate. Though I think I'm happy with them. They've been signed off, but there's still awaiting. But Councillor David would have seen and heard the main comments. It's good to see the council is more or less on budget. When you consider there's a turnover £500 million in this organisation, it's pretty close to being a balanced budget. But finance panel did raise concerns about the clawback in social services in table 2 within your report, Councillor David. There's a line, social contract clawback from providers for amending or overcommitments. For example, it says 260k in that table, but in the appendices it says 270k, and it talks about 270k one-off credit notes, non-delivery of supported living contracts in quarter 1 and 2. Quite surprised that the whole contract has been handed back. We really did want to know the impact on the intended recipients. It's been highlighted to the Social Care and Health Scrutiny Committee for their comments. But I was slightly surprised that a contract has been handed out to an organisation in the budget setting process at the beginning of this financial year, and the whole lot has been handed back, and the impact on the residents. Whether Councillor Sian Cox is in the meeting, I can't see from my screen, but it's really important to understand the impact on the residents that were due to receive the service, but it's equally concerning to know that a contract of that size can be handed out without the proper due diligence. Thank you.
Well, could I bring Director of Social Services in to answer that point? Councillor Sian Cox isn't with us today. She gave her apologies, so I'll bring the Director in.
Yeah, thank you, Leader, and thank you, Councillor Aled, and thank you for raising the query. I just want to make it clear that this isn't a contract that's been handed back. There hasn't been under delivery. The presenting needs of the individuals were met flexibly in a different way via other means. So the hours were not required, and therefore, as rightly so, contract management, the money was returned. So I just want to assure you, Councillor Aled, that no clients were left without a service or were detrimented in any way. In fact, the people were supported in a less restrictive way as their independence is growing. So it's been a positive. But thank you for the question.
Good, and yes, thank you for raising that, and that enabled the clarification to be made, which is very helpful. So thank you indeed. So let's move on to Councillor Jeremy Thorpe, please.
Thank you very much, Leader. Just a couple of small comments. Firstly, apologies if this is mainly down to my lack of understanding, but it seems the headline figures are that we've got a £0.9 million underspend, but that includes a transfer of 1.8 million from reserves. Is that not exactly the same thing as saying that we've got a £0.9 million overspend and we've filled the gap with a transfer from reserves? I don't quite understand why we've transferred more from reserves than there was the gap that was there. My second comment is just, I noticed that there was about £1.5 million that was a result of the storms at the beginning of the year. Just wondering, when we're looking at extrapolating budgets for future years, what position we're taking in terms of predicting what the future costs of storms are. Are we assuming that this year was a one-off, or are we putting a £1.5 million in as a sort of ongoing cost for that? Or are we extrapolating that as we think that storms are actually going to get worse and are looking at having to increase that figure in future years? So just wondering what our assumptions are for future budgets there.
David, did you want to deal with?
With regard to the 0.9 million, that's the forecast for the end of the year. And obviously the reserves movement has happened within Q3, but perhaps Jane could explain that better than I.
Yeah. Thank you, Leader. Yeah, we do use reserves in a planned way. So sometimes we set aside funds that we hold in reserves to be drawn down then for a specific purpose. So as you can see within this report, we are drawing down, as Councillor Thorpe rightly pointed out, £1.8 million worth of reserves. Some of that has been decided through the environment process. You'll recall that we were drawing on some reserves to support social service and their level of overspend. So you are right in terms of that reserves does minimise the level of overspend because we're drawing on those reserves. If we weren't, then of course that overspend, the position would be an overspend position, as Councillor Thorpe rightly pointed out. But it's important that we only draw on reserves in that planned way, because our reserves are at a minimum level in terms of the level of risk that we have across our budgets, both for the current year, but also moving forward too.
Good.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. And the second point, which I thought was a very good one, about future storm damage or potential storm damage issues and how that will reflect in the budget. Thank you.
I'm quite happy to come in on that one as well, Leader.
Okay, your hand is the next one up, Jack. Your hand is the next one up, Jackie. So, yep, fire away.
Okay, and just to reassure Councillor Jeremy that there is a risk budget set aside for flooding on an annual basis, and Jane will be able to tell me, but I think we increased that last year. We do recognise that there is a need for a risk budget on flooding and climate change, so other weather challenges as well. But we have a specific risk budget which is set aside, which we have to set aside by Welsh Government, and anything above that, Welsh Government will then refund us for the money that we're having to spend out. So the I'm not very good at adding up, but the figures that you see there, so the risk budget is, I think, around 450,000, it might be 600,000. I can't quite remember, but anything above that we claw back from Welsh Government. But you're absolutely right. This is an annual cost that we're having to find. I don't see it going away. I suspect it will get worse. And it isn't just about flooding. It's about other weather risks that we have as well. So I hope that answers that. But I also wanted to come in as well, Leader, on the fact that on Thursday, Matt Perry as head of place and myself are giving evidence to the Welsh Government about the impact of Storm Bert and of Storm Dara. They will be sending through a set of questions which I'm still waiting for, so I can't anticipate what they're going to be asking us. But I do intend to make a big plea on behalf of us as a rural county with the added pressure that we have of mountains and river valleys that are creating real problems for us on whether it's highways, whether it's farming, whether it's, you know, whatever it is, whether it's in schools, whether it's social care. This is actually adding an extra burden onto us on an annual basis. So I wanted to raise that point as well. So I hope that's okay.
Thank you very much.
No, absolutely. Very good points. And thank you very much for responding. I see no other hands present. So Councillor David Thomas, would you like to make the recommendations?
Yes, thank you, Leader. So it's recommended that Cabinet note the current budget position and projected full year forecast to the end of March 2024. The grants set out in section 5.1 and Appendix C are noted. Requirements set out in section 5.2 are approved, and those in 5.3 agreed for recommendation to Council. This is to comply with the environment rules for budget movements as set out in the financial regulations.
Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Matthew Dance has seconded those recommendations. Would all those, Councillor Sandra Davies, is that a vote or is that, do you wish to speak? It's a vote. All those in favour, please show. Good, thank you. That's unanimous. Carried. Many thanks, one all, for your contributions, and we can now welcome Councillor Bryn Davies. Welcome, Bryn, and thank you for joining us, because I know you wish to speak to item 5 and present the Trochi working group recommendations. So over to you.
Okay, iawn, diolch yn fawr iawn, Cadeirydd, gyda gymddiheuriadau, cymryd union awr iddyn nhw datrys pa bynnag broblem oedd yn bod efo'r cyfrifiadur oedd wedi crasio ac yn y blaen, so diolch am eich amynedd. Dwi'n cymryd bod item 4 wedi cael ei drafod ar hyrwyddor Gymraeg mewn addysg, ydw i'n iawn yn hynny?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Iawn, okay, so dwi'n ymddiheuro os oes na lawer o ailadrodd yn be sgynna i ddweud, ond yn y bôn, mae angen be sy'ch chi'n dweud yn Saesneg, joined up thinking efo datblygu addysg Gymraeg yn Mhywys sydd heb fodoli erioed yn iawn. Mae datblygiadau bach fan hyn, fan draw ac yn y blaen. Ond mae trochi yn fricsen pwysig ofnadwy i adeiladu mewn i'r drefn. Dydy o ddim yn rocket science, mae'n syml iawn, dyma sut ni'n dysgu pob iaith a pob sgil, dweud gwir. Ac dyma'r unig ffordd sy'n effeithiol wrth datblygu y Gymraeg fel bod unigolion yn gallu bod yn rhugl yn sgwennu, darllen, gwrando a siarad yr iaith. Dyma sut da ni'n dysgu Saesneg, a cwbl da ni'n galw amdano ydy sefydlu'r drefn fel bod o'n bosib i bobl bod yn ddwyieithog a dysgu Cymraeg yn yr un ffordd. Fe oedd y grŵp gweithio o'r pwyllgor craffu, y grŵp gweithio ar trochi yn cyfarfod yn gyson am flwyddyn ac gysyn ni mewnbwn o sawl cyfeiriad o ysgolion, o athrawon, o arbenigwyr ac edrych ar agweddau o trochi ym mhob ffordd. Y peth pwysig i ddeall ydy bod ni wedi sefydlu terminoleg oedd yn llai cyfarwydd, ond gobeithio fydd pobl Powys yn dod yn fwy cyfarwydd ar 3 term, sef trochi cynnar, dyna sy'n digwydd trwy'r amser mewn ysgolion cyfrwng Cymraeg. Trochi hwyr i bobl sydd yn falle'n dewis ceisio dod yn ddwyieithog yn ddiweddarach yn ddiweddarach, ac mae hwnna'n bennaf ar gyfer plant sydd fel arfer yn yn ystod unrhyw flwyddyn cynradd. A trochi pontio ydy trochi wrth newid cyfrwng wrth fynd o ysgol cyfrwng Saesneg i ysgol uwchradd cyfrwng Cymraeg. Ac cwbl mae'r argymhellion yma yn gofyn amdano fo i'r swyddogion datblygu model o cyllido systemau hyn fel bod o'n dod yn barhaol yn rhan o'r darpariaeth addysg ym Mhowys. Da ni bod yn ddibynnol ar grantiau. Mae'r grantiau fel arfer yn dod gan y Llywodraeth Ganolig ac maen nhw yn ceisio datblygu pilots ac yn y blaen, ond gyntaf mae'r grant yn diflannu, mae'r drefn yn chwalu a da ni'n ôl i sgwaru'n fel petai. So mae rhaid i ni cael drefn cyson sydd yn digwydd fel bod o'n rhan o'r darpariaeth addysg o fewn Powys, bod trochi wastad ar gael ac yn gyson rawn y flwyddyn ac yn cael ei gynnal rawn y flwyddyn. Fel nad ydy o bwys pryd mae plant yn rhieni'n cymryd y penderfyniad i mynd amdani i fod yn ddwyieithog. Mae'r cefnogaeth yna i'r disgyblion ac i'r ysgolion sy'n ceisio darparu'r trochi. A mae'n bwysig iawn hefyd, a mae hwn yn rhan o drafodaeth, mae'r swyddogion yn llawn ymwybodol ohono, bod yr ysgolion yn ymroi i addysg ddwyieithog llawn fel dilyniant i'r trochi. Does dim diben cael darpariaeth trochi, a maen nhw'n dod i ben y darpariaeth trochi am unai 12 wythnos falle, neu 2 flynedd os maen nhw mewn ffrwd trochi ysgol uwchradd, ac ar ôl y 2 flynedd, dydy'r addysg Gymraeg ddim ar gael iddyn nhw i gynnal y datblygiad sydd wedi digwydd. A mae'n hollol bwysig bod gwasanaeth addysg ganolig yn gallu cadw llygad barcud ar beth sy'n digwydd yn yr ysgolion uwchradd sy'n derbyn yr arian a'r cefnogaeth i drochi'r plant yma. Os trochi pontio di'r drefn maen nhw'n mynd amdano fo. Dwi'n meddwl bod lot o mwy i ddweud amdano fo, ond dwi'n gobeithio fyddwch chi'n gallu cefnogi'r argymhellion a datblygu y drefn gyda diffiantrwydd a bwriad a gyda'r dealltwriaeth. Mae jyst un fricsen ydy hon wrth adeiladu'r wal, wrth ceisio datblygu sylfaeni cry i addysg ddwyieithog ac i nelu am 1 miliwn o siaradwyr sydd erbyn 2050 sydd fydd efo ni mewn 5 mlynedd ar hugain. Ac os dyn ni o ddifri am i hynny ddigwydd, mae rhaid i ni datblygu hwn ar frys ac datblygu mwy o ysgolion ddwyieithog yn y sir, yn gynradd ac yn uwchradd ac yn chweched dosbarth. Diolch yn fawr, na i stopio siarad fan'na, ond i bai bod chi eisiau fi clywed mwy gyda fi.
Diolch yn fawr. Thank you very much, Bryn. Okay, let's open it up for comment and questions. Recommendations look very comprehensive and sensible as far as I'm concerned, but are there many members who wish to speak? Pete, do you wish to? No? Yeah, oh, Councillor Pete Roberts.
I would like to welcome this report. This is probably one of the most significant pieces of work that we've received from a scrutiny working group in recent years, in that it highlights the opportunities within Powys, but it doesn't shy away from the challenges that we face as well. It highlights quite clearly the geographic extent of the county and how, unlike some South Wales authorities, we can't just place one centre in the centre of the county and it be accessible to everyone. It highlights the significant investment that we need to make if we are to deliver on the aspirations of the WESP and therefore the aspirations of the 2050 target that Bryn mentioned right at the end of his presentation. It is something that needs further consideration. It needs work from officers, not only to work out how we deliver this geographically, but how we deliver it financially as well. And that delivery financially may not just be a case of how we deliver from within the council, but also highlighting back to Welsh Government, as I have through the portfolio holder meetings with the Minister, that if these aspirations are to be met, then for rural authorities like Powys, there needs to be significant Welsh Government investment, because one site is not possible. We will need 2, possibly even 3, although the work that we do in Ystalyfera meets some of the demand in the very southwest of the county. So I welcome this. When we leave today, I will be talking to officers and asking them to take these recommendations and bring them back as a costed paper. I'm not sure that we will be able to do anything within this financial year, because it would require significant environments that may not already be there. But I will ask them to consider it in respect to the finance resource model for the following year, and also look to take every opportunity that I have, that the director has, and other officers and members of cabinet have, to lobby Welsh Government for them to actually take their responsibilities for helping rural authorities deliver on their commitment that they've made to the Welsh language. And I say that with all sincerity, because I know what's coming down the line in school transformation proposals in terms of moving schools along the continuum in all aspects, be that new dual stream, transition from dual stream to Welsh medium, or all through schools coming through in the process. So this is a very timely piece of work, and I once again conclude by thanking Councillor Bryn for his leadership of the working group, for the members of the working group for the work that they've done, and the chair of the scrutiny committee for setting this up as part of his work. Thank you all.
Yeah, good. Councillor Sandra Davies, please.
Diolch yn fawr. I too would like to thank Councillor Bryn and the committee that have compiled this comprehensive report, but I do have concerns regarding the finance of it. We are very dependent upon our grants. We cannot assure that we will receive grants. It's excellent that we put and utilise the work of the grants to the good of the whole of Powys, but my concern is for the future of not only the Welsh language, but the future of, well, this is our Welsh language, isn't it? It's very entwined in the strategy that has just gone through successfully, thank you. But as I said, my concern is with the finance, and I'd like much more detailed work to go ahead with how we are going to secure the future in this piece of work. Thank you.
No, Joachim Var, thank you. Now, Councillor Davis is indicating he wishes to speak. I don't know in what role, Aled, you are wishing to come in. I will allow you to speak. Others probably wouldn't, but I will. But briefly, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Leader. I was part of the working group, so diolch yn fawr iawn am cael y amser i dweud gair neu ddau, ond mae mor pwysig bod ni ddim yn derbynnu yn uniongyrchol ar y Llywodraeth yn Caerdydd i gwneud siŵr bod yna cyllid yn dod i datblygu trochi ac y iaith Gymraeg yma yn Powys. Rhaid ni fel bobl Powys cymryd cyfrifoldeb am hwnna hefyd. A felly dwi ddim eisiau y cabinet yn troi ran a dweud, wel, does gen i ddim cyllid gan y cynulliad yn Caerdydd, felly mae'n ni'n methu wneud ddim byd. Sori, Senedd, ddim cynulliad. Ond felly mae'n pwysig bod ni'n cymryd y cyfrifoldeb at datblygu iaith yma yng Powys. Ac dwi'n gwybod mae yna penderfyniadau anodd iawn, ond mae hwn yn rhan bwysig o traws newid ysgolion ni. Ac felly mae y ddau yn gweithio gyda'i gilydd. Felly, please, peidiwch a jyst rhoi bai ar y Llywodraeth yn Caerdydd. Rhaid ni cymryd cyfrifoldeb ein hunain. Diolch yn fawr iawn.
Diolch yn fawr. Thank you very much, Councillor Davis. Very good point. And we've heard that the portfolio holder is going to ask officers to come back with a report to Cabinet on how we implement these recommendations. And we look forward to that, and then we can all have a further debate about it at that point. And I look forward to that very much. Good. We don't have to take a vote on this. We received the recommendations. They will be worked on quickly, and we look forward to a further report. And my sincere thanks to Councillor Bryn and indeed to all the members of the working group for the diligence that they've shown in addressing this issue, which has been pointed out and is absolutely right, is a very, very important one and a crucial plank in our implementation of the WESP and indeed the transformation of our school system. So many thanks to all. Diolch yn fawr. Good. Let's move on to we return to the financial matters, to the capital forecast. David, Capital Thomas, please.
Thank you, Leader. So this is the capital forecast 24-25 as of 31st December 2024. Some background: the 24-25 capital programme was approved by Council on the 22nd of February 2024. It included capital schemes totalling £102.5 million, of which £37.57 million related to the housing revenue account. The revised programme of the 31st of December 2024 was budgeted at £86.44 million, following the successful award of additional grants and the reprofiling of budgets between financial years. Actual spend amounts to £46.86 million, representing 54% of the total budget. And Table 1 is a breakdown by service, and that can be seen at 2.3. Currently, 29%, £24.12 million of the capital expenditure is budgeted to be financed by borrowing. The interest cost for this is charged to the revenue account. Table 2 at 2.5 shows the actual capital programme funding. Section 3 lists grants received so far. So the following grants have been received since the start of the financial year. These are for additional schemes and have been incorporated into the capital programme. And we received grants in highways, transport and recycling, regeneration, community wellbeing, education and digital services. Section 4, with regard to reprofiling budgets across financial years. Following the extensive review of budgets in Q3, services have continued to review their budgets during Q4 to ensure their allocations in the capital programme accurately reflect their plans for this year. And you've got listed there the activities that have taken place in highways, transport and recycling, education, and allocated on housing revenue account. With regard to environments, the Capital Oversight Board considered business cases for the following two schemes and recommend environment to Cabinet to fund these works. Freudgrich Depot and Welshpool Church and Wales C&W installation of solar photovoltaic and battery storage at these sites. The Council has been successful in securing £0.1 million Welsh Government grant funding against a scheme cost of £0.17 million. The remaining £0.7 million recovered by Salix Investor Save funding, so needs Cabinet approval. These works would enable savings on energy use on these sites, which will be used to cover the repayment of these costs. And the other one is works are required at Rhyadr Waste Transfer Station to ensure it can continue to be compliant with the revised guidance issued by NRW. With regard to capital receipts, there's detail listed at section 6. £0.6 million has been received to date, including £0.28 million received with the housing revenue account. There are currently sales agreed to the value of £0.8 million. These are at the legal stage of the process and will generate future capital receipts. There are £5.66 million of assets that are in the process of being sold. However, it's highly unlikely that these will be sold before the end of the financial year. It will not be possible to achieve the annual target of £10 million capital receipts this financial year due to sales falling through the delays with other sales. With regard to resource implications, expenditure on the capital programme continues to be monitored carefully through the year. Although inflation has stabilised, costs are high alongside supply chain issues and additional borrowing costs, which will have to be carefully considered. Borrowing costs for the next few years are expected to remain higher than originally estimated. This will have a significant impact on the Council's revenue budget. And that concludes the report, Leader.
Very much. Excuse me. Yeah, thank you very much, David. We have a question from Councillor Jackie Chartner, or a comment. Jackie.
Thank you. It's a comment rather than a question. And just to say thank you to Councillor David for this report, and just to highlight 5.2 in Fugrec, the depot is a specific area that we wanted to progress to enable us to take forward some of our very ambitious targets for future of saving energy, but also to having electric charging points available for our vehicles as well. So it was a very welcome grant application that we received for that, and for Welsh Borsee Church in Wales for the installation of solar photovoltaic and battery storage. The battery storage is particularly important because not only can we generate our electricity now, but we can also save it on site, which is a big step forward. And also to say that this is the way that we will be looking to cover our net zero ambitions going forward to 2030, which is to look for grants to cover the costs and not to take it out of our budget. But this is one way of demonstrating how we will be moving forward on this one. So I just wanted to highlight that. Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you very much, Leader, rather.
No, thank you, Dr. Thank you very much, Jackie. Indeed, and a very good point, and very welcome developments in those two locations. Councillor Ag Davis, Chairman of Finance Panel, please.
Thank you, Leader. Just a very couple of quick comments. The panel did express a frustration around the low percentage of spend that had taken place. There's quite a lot of expenditure to happen in the next quarter. But just quick comment on the HDR. Sorry, I was scrolling down my screen, but there was an underspends within the HDR budget and in some areas of the HDR budget, but there were projects within the road repair area that hadn't taken place because as capital had run out of capital, where the environments could have happened within that HDR budget to ensure the capital projects were completed. And then that would save on urgent temporary repairs to the highway network, and I'm sure that would offset the potential cost of the extra borrowing within that service. Thank you, Leader.
No, Dr. Thank you. Would somebody like to address that point? Yeah, Matt Perry, please.
Yeah. Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just picking up on Councillor Allard's point, I know I've had correspondence with Councillor Allard in terms of the capital scheme some elements that have been carried forward, but it's a fair point, and I'll certainly pick that up with the team in terms of in-year environments to make sure that we do maximise all our spend to ensure that we do, particularly being proactive in terms of the resurfacing work. So I'll pick that up with the team. Thank you, Chair.
No, thank you, and thank you for raising the point, which was a good one. So I see no further hands. David, would you like to make the recommendation?
Yes, Leader. So the recommendation is that the contents of this report are noted and that the environment in section 5 of this report is approved.
Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Pete Roberts seconded. Would all those in favour please show? Good. Thank you very much indeed. So let's carry. Excellent. We've just got a few more items. Does anybody need a break? We're happy to continue. Good. Let's move to a very important item, item 9, one I'm particularly pleased to see on the agenda. Councillor Richard Church, please.
Diolch yn fawr, thank you, Leader. It's extraordinary actually to think that it's 36 years since the appalling Hillsborough disaster and the shocking loss of life at that time, and that it's taken 36 years for the consequences of that disaster and what happened after it to reach the conclusion of this report that is here with you today. To say this isn't about the disaster itself, it's about the cover-ups and the attitudes of institutions which were seeking to protect their own reputation in the inquiries and the investigations that followed Hillsborough. And this particular charter arises from a report described, I think very accurately, as the patronising disposition of unaccountable power. And people might think, well, how is this relevant to Powys? Because we don't have football stadiums of this kind of size within our county. But the kind of disaster that happened in Hillsborough could happen anywhere in Wales. It could be a transport disaster, it could be a fire, it could be any one of a number of different disasters in which people lose their lives. But I'm also conscious of the fact that it can take one fatality, one casualty, to lead to an inquiry in which the sort of practices of cover-up and denial could happen. So I think it's important that that we apply this charter, and I'm asking that we apply it not just to major incidents of multiple deaths, but to any incident which might lead to an inquiry, and it therefore links very much in with our role as an authority in safeguarding vulnerable people. And the charter asks us to place the public interest ahead of our own reputation, and I think that is absolutely key. And just to run very quickly through the points that the charter makes, in the event of a public tragedy, to support the activation of emergency plans and deployment of resources to rescue victims, to protect the bereaved and to protect the vulnerable, to place the public interest above our own reputation, to approach forms of public scrutiny, including public inquiries and inquests, with candour and in an open and transparent way. And I think that is absolutely essential to much of the work that we undertake following an incident in Powys, and to avoid seeking to defend the indefensible or to dismiss or disparage those who may have suffered where we have fallen short. And I think some of us can remember the appalling behaviour of a certain tabloid newspaper following the Hillsborough disaster, and the offence and that caused by blaming victims and blaming the bereaved for the consequences of Hillsborough. Fifthly, to ensure that all members of staff treat members of the public and each other with mutual respect and with courtesy, and where we fall short, we should apologise straightforwardly and genuinely. And finally, to recognise that we are accountable and open to challenge. We will ensure that processes are in place to allow the public to hold us account for the work we do and for the way in which we do it, and that we do not knowingly mislead the public or the media. We're being asked to adopt this charter alongside all of the other local authorities in Wales, together with other public service organisations, the emergency services and others, so that we can come together throughout Wales to be the first country who signs up fully to this charter. And I think that's something which I hope we would all welcome and support. And indeed there will be an event in a couple of weeks where we will come together in order to do that. So I would ask that we sign up to this, not just as a charter, but as a matter of policy in the way that we behave and that our staff act. And I hope that we can disseminate this throughout our organisation to ensure that we treat victims and the bereaved in the way in which we would properly expect. Thank you, Leader.
No, thank you. And thank you for a very clear and cogent explanation of what we're considering today. Greg Landridge Thomas, who's worked on this from an office perspective, is with us. Greg, is there anything you wish to add? As Richard covered it adequately.
I think Richard has covered it all. Thank you.
But that's fine. Thank you very much. And thank you for the work that you've done in preparing this. Are there any comments from members that wish to make? Councillor Jackie Charlton, please.
Thank you. I'm absolutely delighted to make a comment on this. I see this as being a very forthright and open document, which I can't see any of us having any difficulty in signing up for. And Councillor Richard says that quite rightly we don't have big stadiums in Powys, but we have a massive amount of public events in Powys. We have the Royal Welsh Show, we have the Green Man Festival, we have the Hay Festival, we have other festivals that take part fairly regularly in our countryside, which includes vehicles and motorbikes and cycles and walking and running. All those events include people who are visiting our beautiful county. We know it's a beautiful county for the very reasons that it is a beautiful county and that they can participate in those kinds of sports and activities. And by adopting this, I think we're providing them with a level of assurance that we not only very much welcome them visiting our county, but we will also keep them safe as well. So I fully support this, and thank you to Greg for bringing this forward and for all the work that he does already on the Royal Welsh to protect people who go to that particular festival once a year, which is a massive, the biggest festival in Europe, I understand, for agriculture, and lots of different activities for young people and old people alike. But it just goes to show that we do have large numbers of people who do visit our county and do expect us to keep a level of safety there for them. So thank you very much for this report. Fully support it.
Thank you very much, Jackie. Councillor Pete Roberts.
I remember listening to the Hillsborough disaster unfold on radio as a child. I also remember the responses that we now learn were so wrong from the authorities. A few years later, a split-second decision meant I travelled back from Edinburgh 12 hours later. Had I not made that decision, the group I was travelling with would have been within 10 miles of Lockerbie when that incident happened. An incident like this can happen at any time, in any place. We're a rural authority, but in my time as in this council, We've had a major fire in the Llanwrtyd area with multiple loss of life. We've had the sad incident at the Royal Welsh on the Rye that led to the group that Greg so ably puts together for the council every year. We have had tragedies within children's social care. And all of these, however small, lead to a loss of life that leads to inquiries afterwards. I'm pleased very much so with the section that takes this further than the charter originally envisages and looks at bringing it back into all of the actions of Powys County Council where there is a loss of life. So I fully support the work that Greg has done, paper that Richard is bringing forward, and I hope, I know that all the officers and political colleagues in this room will support it and will propagate that within the staff so that they understand that if something goes wrong, they don't need to be afraid of admitting they made a mistake. They don't need to cover things up, and they most definitely do not need to lie to the public, because we will look after any officer, any politician that makes a genuine mistake. So I commend this to my colleagues in Cabinet as well.
Good, thank you very much. Now, the portfolio holder has asked that we apply this charter, should we sign up to it, to all sorts of incidents that involve loss of life, including, for example, road traffic accidents, which alas are an all too frequent occurrence in the county. I don't think we need to change the recommendations to do that. I think that we can make that implicit in what it's already been said and when we sign. So, Richard, are you happy to leave the recommendations as they are?
Yes, I'm very happy to do that. In fact, I think the recommendations reflect that point in saying that these principles are followed wherever the response of Powys County Council to an incident is likely to have a significant impact.
Yeah, good. Okay. In which case, if you'd like to put the recommendations formally, we'll proceed.
Thank you. Yes, 10.1, that Cabinet adopt the Charter and its principles on behalf of Powys County Council as set out in Annex A to the report, and that these principles are followed wherever the response of Powys County Council to an incident is likely to have a significant impact of the confidence of an individual, their family and or community. And 2, adopting the Charter will enable us to meet the needs and expectations of our residents and communities should we face a significant public disaster or major incident in the future.
Good, thank you very much. Do I have a seconder for that, please? Councillor Matthew Dorrance has seconded. All those in favour, please show. Good, that's carried. Right, and we can move on, but before I do, just to remind everybody, talking of major incidents, next year will be the 60th anniversary year for the Aberfan disaster. It's hard to believe that it's 60 years ago, but indeed another example of where the organs of the British state did not respond in a way that we would today feel acceptable, and it could be more apt. This could not be more appropriate in the light of that. So let's move on to 10, which is corporate safeguarding activity, which is in the name of Nina Davis, the Director of Social Services. Nina.
Diolch. Thank you, Chair. Cabinet is requested to note this update from the Corporate Safeguarding Board, which last met on the 12th of December 2024. As requested by the Health and Care Scrutiny Committee, the activity report update includes a greater level of detail, which I hope you will see in the report in front of you today. I will take the report as read, but I wanted to highlight just a couple of key areas. One of the main agenda items was regarding the Audit Wales follow-up inspection. Audit Wales noted the significant improvements made in corporate safeguarding arrangements across the council. Of the previous 11 recommendations, 7 have been fully implemented and completed. with actions ongoing and plans in place to fully address the remaining 4 recommendations. Of note, the Audit Wales follow-up inspection had no new recommendations. Some areas of future focus have been suggested, and the board have agreed that an action plan will be provided at the next meeting. Thanks were given to councillors, staff across all services for their work to embed safeguarding and ensure that it is seen as everyone's responsibility. Thanks also go to the Health and Care Scrutiny Committee and Governance and Audit Committees for their ongoing input and diligence in this area. Future areas of focus for the Corporate Safeguarding Board include volunteers working on behalf of Powys County Council across all service areas, contract management framework, compliance with safeguarding and VOWDA SV training, contractor guidance for safer recruitment. The board received updates and reports from the Regional Safeguarding Board on Safeguarding Self-Assessment Action Plan and a newly created BI dashboard, on Education Safeguarding, an update on the JICPA Action Plan, mandatory safeguarding training, which of course is something we look at every meeting, safeguarding in housing, adult services and children's services. We had an update on the National Safeguarding Week, which was held in November of last year, and we received reports from the Mid and West Wales Safeguarding Children and Adults Board's annual reports. Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to briefly take you through those highlights, but happy to take any comments. Thank you.
Does anybody wish to comment or question? It's all very comprehensive report. No, no questions or comments. And we are just to receive this. We don't need to go to a vote. Just note it. No, we just need to note it and thank all those involved. And indeed, thanks to everybody involved in, Nina in particular, in leading the huge improvements we've seen in this area of the council's work over the last couple of years. It's been a considerable success in my view, which is excellent. So thank you very much. We can move to item 11, which is the delegated decisions taken since the last meeting. Are there any comments or questions that members wish to raise there? Anything portfolio holders wish to add? No? Good. And forward work programme is at item 12. It's there as ever, as I say every meeting. This is an iterative document. It can be changed as the occasion demands, but that's how things stand at the moment. Again, are there any points that anybody wishes to add to that? No? Good. And that, I think, is the last item on our agenda. We have no other business? No. No? Good. And I can therefore draw the meeting to a close. So thank you all, one and all, for attending and for everybody's contributions, which have been very welcome. So thank you.